Hello, my name is Chase and I'm an alcoholic. Today I'm going to be telling you my story, but before I do, would like to request something very special. Due to the content of the material that will be discussed, I ask that this video not be reproduced on TV, radio, film, or in the press. This is to protect the anonymity of AA. I do not want to be a reflection of AA in case something was negative about my speech that could affect that program. AA has saved my life, and now I'd like to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Before I start my story, there's a little story I'd like to start as a preview. There was a little girl. She ran up to her dad and sat in his lap and said, "Daddy, I want to play." And her dad said, "Honey, not now. I'm reading the newspaper." Little girl said, "Oh, please, Daddy, please, I want to play." So he found something in the paper, and it was a map of the world. So he cut the map of the world out of the paper, tore it into shreds, and said, "Here, honey, this is a puzzle. You put this puzzle together, and when it's completed, then we'll play." So he went back to reading the newspaper, and the little girl took off to put the puzzle together. At the end of my story, I'll complete this story. But I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska on August 15th, 1946 to a very loving mom and dad. My dad was a grocery store clerk, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom with various activities of any time she could help someone. After 2 years of living in Lincoln, we moved to Hexton, Colorado, where I grew up. I was close friend with another friend, and we had a great friendship all the way through our senior year in high school and beyond. But anyway, the kids never picked on me that much. They teased me a little bit because I was skinny and fun to poke fun at times, but never anything really harsh. So I had a pretty good childhood and didn't excel until my senior year in high school. But my senior year in high school, I took shorthand, and I loved it so much I decided when I got out of school I'd become a secretary. So I got straight A's in that course, which was rare for me in that time. Then I went on to business college in Denver, Colorado, where I graduated 3 days before I went in the Air Force. I'd never been drunk up to this point of going through high school. The only drink I even knew about was called the hot toddy that Dad would fix for us kids when we had a cold, but nothing to ever even feel a buzz or anything. But when I turned 18 there in Denver, I decided I'd go out to a bar with some friends. Now that siren in the background is actually real life, but hopefully it's not coming here. I like to say a little prayer. God, please be with the rescuers and rescue workers, those being rescued and those needing rescue. Okay, back to the story. Anyway, I went to my first bar ever as far as drinking, and had 2.5 glasses of beer and thought, "Oh my God, I'm getting drunk." Actually, I wasn't. What I was doing is I'd been smoking since I was age 12, and I had inhaled the cigarette. And I can't believe I was that naive, but I never inhaled prior to that point. Well, the next night is how I figured that out, because I wasn't drinking and I got the same horrible feeling. Well, I don't want to go into smoking dialogue, but that was my first encounter with alcohol. Then, the dorm I stayed in, they threw a party, and I drank some there and drank some more, and I thought, "Oh, this party's dull. I need to liven up. I'll just pretend I'm going to jump out the window." We were on, I think, 3rd floor, but definitely 2nd floor, if not. And I went to the window and I told my dorm mates, I said, "Guess what? I'm going to jump." The next day, when I realized what had happened, I hadn't forgotten. I knew exactly what I was doing, so I thought. I thought I was out to about here, just chest level. They told me I was out below my waist, and they had to pull me back in the window. Now, the horror part of this story is any one of those other teenagers, young people that were there, I mean, we were all college age level, most of us anyway. And if I would have gone out, I could have pulled any one of them out with me. So my drinking began very dangerously right off the start. Next, I went to a bank party with one of my closest friends' sister. I was underage. I was 19. I'm going to guess 19. I might have been still 18, but I think 19. And I had 3 whiskey sours. And they were so good. And I said, what's another drink that's good? And she said, well, vodka's good. So I went up to the bartender and I said, I'd like a glass of vodka. And Mary Ann, my friend, she said, screwdriver, screwdriver. And the bartender winked at her and said, I wonder what he would have done if I would have given him a glass of vodka. Well, being so new to drinking, that would have been way, way too much. Well, anyway, after those, I think it was 3 of the drinks I just mentioned, in addition to the other 3, I was flying pretty high. Luckily, and thank God I wasn't driving that night. Another couple was who we double dated with. The driver somehow got involved with another car sideswiping us. Well, of course, I felt guilty and I said, oh, it's my fault because you were taking me home and I was crying like a baby, and the other couple was much older than what I was. And they said, no, it was the other car that sideswiped us. It has nothing to do with you. And I crawled out in the middle of very busy traffic there in Denver because the cars were waiting for, I guess, place to arrive or whatever. Anyway, as I'm laying there in the street, crawled out like a snake, Mary Ann got out and said, get up, somebody's going to hit you. And then I looked at her and I thought, if they hit me, they're going to hit you, so I better get back in the car. Oh, I just felt horrible. Well, that was the beginning of many suicidal, horrible behaviors throughout my drinking career. Next, I went into the Air Force. This is kind of a sad story because I was mistreated over there. The squadron I was with decided to use me as somebody that they could attack viciously. And I don't know, I think they were trying to drive me out of the squadron, but their motive was to drive me crazy. They told me that the last day I was there. They got together and said, when you saw those fires and your room was sprayed with bug spray and all of the things that happened while you were over there, while you were here in Okinawa, we did that to try to drive you crazy. Now, if you tell anyone this, we're going to band together and deny it again like we did when the security police came and questioned us about this, and we will not tolerate you hurting us, but we don't want you to go back to the States and not know what really happened. I never knew what was going to be in my room when I came home. Sometimes it was ransacked, or I had, like I say, bug spray sprayed in the room so bad. Some of the guys would say, you know what a blanket party is? And I said, yes, I know what a blanket party is. For those of you that don't know, it's where they throw a blanket over your, come up from behind you, throw a blanket over you, and then everybody kicks and slugs you after you're knocked down. Well, guess we're going to have a blanket party for you tonight. Oh, it was a terrifying experience. And I went to a promotion party one night and drank, I'll never forget this, 10 whiskey sours, and they were the tall glass, not the short glass. And in that scenario, after drinking all that, it was Memorial Day weekend, I think 1967, I decided I wanted to play in the traffic. You know what's great is most drunks don't want to play in the traffic. Well, here again, they're pulling me out of the middle of the street with traffic going by. Anyone could get hit, not only me, but one of them. That was when, people are drunk, they kind of band together a little closer. Well, From Okinawa, I came stateside, was stationed at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and in that 10-year period, because I got drunk so bad that night, Memorial Day weekend of '67, I decided I would not drink like that. I didn't want to become an alcoholic. And I really, for 10 years, had a lot of times where I'd only have one or two and stop. Now, I'm sure there are a few that I've forgotten about that were much longer than that one or two drinks. But in general, it was one or two drinks and I'd stop. The key for me was it was never enough. And I was lying to myself about controlling it because something else was already working in my life. I'm not marriage material, but my ex-wife decided she liked me enough to let me give it a try, and we got married, and we were married for 9 years. I'm not marriage material, like I say, but anyway, it was better after we divorced. I used to have people call me horrible names. The neighbors sometimes would do that, one set of neighbors. And yet when I accepted who I was after the divorce, it was like a lot of that just fell away. Okay, in 1979, that was the year of my divorce in June. February of 1979, I was in a head-on car accident. Prior to that, I was an avid CB radio operator. We ran our group, we called ourselves a family of friends. The Heartline channel is on channel 12, and everybody just was like one big, happy, warm, loving family. And we were on our way to a CB Jamboree. And thank God I wasn't drunk that night or even had anything to drink. But I was the last car in a 7-car convoy. And it was at the fairgrounds, and we were all excited we were going to all be together as a group event. Well, the first car, one of my very, very best friends, Danny, was driving. And somewhere in the middle, somebody said, "Come on, it's safe." And I presume that meant for me. And so I was passing another car. Now, I don't recall all of this. This came out later. But what I do recall is I felt safe in passing it because it was moving really slow. And I was the last car, and the other cars were quite a ways ahead of me. So as I'm passing this car, another car was coming at excessive speed in the opposite direction. We hit head on. And, oh, you don't ever want to live through something, experience something like that, except for one reason. And that is when somebody else goes through it, you'll have compassion for them like never before. So as I was trapped in my car, remember trying to get out the door, and it was jammed tightly shut to where I couldn't open it. My face was bleeding, or my lips and teeth, around my teeth, I'd bit my lip almost through. I know I hit the steering wheel twice because of the way the teeth were a little bit chipped, and the bottom lip was almost cut through with the impact. Well, since I couldn't get out of the car and I could feel blood dripping, I didn't even know if I had a face. Thank God I did, and I wasn't injured all that badly. But Danny, the first car that I told you about, by then he knew something was wrong and came back, and with one swoop of his arm, he opened that car door, and it came off the hinge, and I got out of the car. He told me, "Don't go over to that other car." Well, dumb me, I had to go over, and the driver was a lady, and it just broke my heart because I didn't want anyone else to be hurt. I didn't want to be hurt, and she died about sometime within an hour or so of that later. As I was sitting in one of the other cars waiting for the ambulance to take me for being checked, I could hear the electric saws cutting on the other car, and they had to cut her out of the car. Oh, I just felt terrible. And the police officer at the hospital asked me, "Do you know what a yellow line is?" And I said, "Yes, it means don't pass if it's on your side of the road." And he said, "A double yellow line?" I said, "It means nobody can pass on either side." He said, "Are you aware there was a yellow line in the road?" I said, "No, I'm not aware of anything of that nature." And it was done at that. The next day, he took my license and information. The next day, a police officer brought my license back to my home, and I presumed it was over as far as the horror of it, except for, like I say, that night Danny and my ex-wife and her mother were all together at the house where I was after coming home, and Danny told me that the lady in the other car had died. I really felt it was just an accident, nothing that was intentional, no way I could have avoided it other than not passing the other car, but I don't know, it's just one of those things. Well, 10 months later, I was arrested for manslaughter. They came to my work and handcuffed me and carted me away. And I couldn't understand why. In the interim, I'd gone through a mental hospitalization at Palo Verde Mental Hospital because I was so suicidal. I had gotten well, I mean mentally well, and it was a month and a day after my release from the hospital that I was arrested for manslaughter. So I got my lawyer. I had a lawyer friend, and he said he'd handle the case for me. He said the grand jury came back with a police report that said I was aware I'd passed a yellow line. And I said, "I never said that." Prior to this, I was not going to plea bargain at all. I was going to go totally for innocence. And the lawyer said, "Well, I don't know what to say. That's what the police report shows." And I said, "I remember very vividly that I said, I don't know whether there was a yellow line there." And since even to this day, I have no idea if there was a yellow line there. I would hope there wasn't, because I don't think I'd be that stupid to go across one. But anyway, it was time to go to court, and I agreed with my lawyer that we could plea bargain. It was brought down to endangerment, with the judge making the decision it could be 3 levels of felony or 3 levels of misdemeanor. Any one of those 6 levels is what I would be charged with. It'd be up to the judge. Well, thank God I had some friends. I had over 70 character reference letters that were written for me, and the judge said, "I've never had this many letters from any client or any person that's appeared before me in court before, and I take those very seriously and use them in helping me to make my decision to grant you the lightest legal sentence I possibly can, which was the lowest misdemeanor." I was just really, really grateful, and I was told I'd be on probation for 3 years. And he said, "The reason I'm giving you 3 years is in case you have to pay this back, you won't have it all at once." And I told my lawyer after the judge spoke, and I said, "That's already been paid by my insurance." So the lawyer said that to the judge. The judge said, "Okay, well, once that's verified, then it can be reduced to a year." Well, somehow it didn't get relayed to the probation officer. I ended up being on probation for the full 3 years. And she'd look at me and say, "Oh, how does it feel to kill someone?" So how do you think it feels? I didn't deliberately kill someone, and yet I'd see criminals in there that had done things really deliberately. And, "Oh, just be sure you get your paperwork in on time," is the way she'd act with them. Anyway, after 3 years, I threw the biggest party I ever threw in my life, and that was my freedom party, because I was free. And if you've never had your freedom taken away, free is wonderful, and you really know it at that point. So from freedom, I remember that night we had alcohol. Well, it was my party. I had provided some alcohol. Some people even brought beer or whatnot. But I know I didn't get to the point of being under the influence. This is all the more reason how could I be alcoholic? Well, what I've left out is whenever I drank, I always wanted attention. And if I couldn't get that attention, I'd go out and run in front of cars and beg them to run me over. And when they didn't do that, I'd curse at them. Now, there's a very sad story that I hope one day I can find the man to make my amends to him. But anyway, here's the part. I heard screech, and this guy laid down his motorcycle. I was out on the main street. It was Wilmot or Tanque Verde area. He laid his motorcycle down as I was trying to get run over by cars, and he said, well, I won't use the words he used, but he cussed at me pretty good and had his fist doubled up. You could have killed me. And I looked at him and I said, I don't want to kill you. I'm trying to kill me. But then my friend who had been at the bar with me came out, kind of kept me from getting hurt by this other guy, which I more really deserved to be hurt. He said, he's drunk, I'll take him home, everything's okay, and blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing. I didn't even see that motorcyclist, and I sure would not want to endanger him or any other life. And if I ever have the opportunity of that man being in the audience when I tell my story, I'd like him to know that I've been sober since July 11th, 1987, which is 25 years and 40-some odd weeks, and it just means the world to me that I don't do that behavior anymore. Also, I know there are many cars that dodged and dived when I was out there, and I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, I know they weren't happy to see somebody out in the middle of the street trying to get run over. And I want to thank them and thank God for keeping me alive through all that. And I'm so grateful that God allowed me not to cause anyone else to be hurt out in the streets. Well, as I was working for the phone company for 13 years, I resigned. I thought I can better myself because I've gone through all the transitions of the Bell system breaking up. And I think it was like the 2nd of July, somewhere in that area, actually was my last day. Well, July 11th, I went to a treatment center. I thought, well, I have insurance, I might as well get treated for codependency. I'd already been to Adult Children of Alcoholics, which is a 12-step program that saved my life. And I'd been to Al-Anon. I went there, even having a nervous breakdown, took a month to recover from or more. They treated me with just lots of love. So I knew if I could improve my codependency problems to the point where I wasn't dependent upon others as much and focusing outside of myself instead of inside, I could get some help at a treatment center. So the night before I went in, I remember taking that bottle of 10 High, of all bottles to have, and gulping down a couple gulps and saying, now I got to remember what this is like because I won't be able to drink for a month. Well, the thing of it is, going in as a codependent, I wasn't planning to come out as an alcoholic. Even my first day there, they took away my breath drops. I kept them in my pocket. My mouth spray that I'd always use, because they had alcohol content. I had no idea that was going to happen. I said, well, what am I going to do about my breath? And the lady was checking me and said, well, you can use toothpaste. Duh. Anyway, that went. And I said, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm here for codependency. Well, it was 9 days into that treatment center. In my own handwriting, I saw what some of the things I did when I was drinking was not very non-alcoholic. And it was like, oh my God, I'm one of them. And it took a while to really get it to, yeah, I am one of you guys that are alcoholic, because the denial was so deep. Here's the gift. Even though I wasn't prepared to quit drinking other than for that 1 month, which I thought would be a piece of cake, even though I didn't plan on it, God had a plan for me, and that was for me to stop drinking on and never drink again after July 11th, 1987. And you know, I've never gone back out since. It took a while for me to learn that I really was an alcoholic. this has been a time where I can reflect on the years of sobriety that I've had. I've been asked to be a sponsor. I've sponsored people. I've had numerous sponsors, not because of anything necessarily bad, but because one moved away, another one was better for both of us if we broke it off. Life changes. People go through all kinds of situations. But I respect every sponsor I've ever had, including my current one, Skip. He still helps me whenever I call and say, I need to do another fourth step, or I have a question about how to handle this situation. If you've never worked the steps, how do you change? Well, I was willing to work the steps, but I was so confused about being alcoholic. I knew I had alcohol problems, but was I really alcoholic? And I had a sponsor that said, well, do it this way. You believe the third tradition, right? And I said, yes. I have a desire to stop drinking. He said, okay, this is what I want you to do. For the next 30 days, introduce yourself this way. My name is Chase, and I have a desire to stop drinking. Then he said, I want you to shut up and listen after that for 30 days. Well, it was, I don't know, a week later or whatever, I was at a meeting and I shared, and I felt bad about it. And I told him I was going to be on, I was feeling good about myself. I'm going to be honest with my sponsor and tell him that I shared. So I told him about it, and his response was nothing like I thought it would be, like, oh, that's so nice of you to be so honest. It was, well, I think you need to find another sponsor, someone you'll follow suggestions from. Now, it hurt like heck, but it was one of the greatest gifts I've ever received, because if I'm going to ask somebody for help, then I need to follow their direction, not my own. My own got me into trouble. So, following another sponsor, I was in the mental hospital for a month when I was working on started to begin my fourth step. It had nothing to do with the fourth step for me going to the mental hospital, but it was 88, early 88. I was a few months sober, and this sponsor said, well, just read from the big book, the third step each day, and then, or every other day, and then the opposite days read it from the 12 and 12 book. So I did that, and when I got out of the treatment center, then we began the fourth, I mean not the treatment center, when I got out of the psychiatric ward, then we had started on the fourth step. I'd say, I'm done. He said, no, you aren't. Write 2 more things and call me tomorrow. I said, well, I've thought of everything. Well, needless to say, the next day I'd come up with those 2 more things. And say, I think I'm done now. He said, no, you aren't. Keep writing. The gift is I got to be very thorough with that fourth step. And when I did the fifth step with him, he was so good about not judging me. I never felt any shame or anguish. He even shared some things about himself with me that made me feel a little more human and acceptable. And after doing the fifth step, I was feeling so low, and somebody said, well, that's why you have 6 and 7 follow number 5, because you got to get right into it. And so with 6, I was ready. There's no question about it after seeing all that was revealed in the 4th and 5th steps. So that made step 7 very easy. And to be able to pray with another human being, it's one of the greatest gifts. And I said the 7th step prayer with my sponsor, and I've done that throughout the years. Whenever I'm sponsoring or going through another 4th and 5th step, that prayer that's in the big book under the 7th step. On the 8th step list, this is the first time I was doing it, my sponsor said, okay, here's the things you'll do, and he told me where to go and how to do it. And the gift was I was able to clean up the wreckage of my past as much as was available at that time in the 9th step by making amends. One of the amends I made was to the IRS. I had taken money and used it with a way I thought I could cover up something with a charity donation. And that bothered me, so I went to the IRS and told them about it. They said, well, that was so long ago, we don't have records back that far to amend your tax return. I said, well, can I just make a donation of the amount? They said, no, if you donate it, it'll go under your name, and at the end of the year, it'll come back to you, or the beginning of the next year, with interest. And I said, well, I don't want interest on what I've done. What was so precious is it was a man and a woman there, black man and a white woman, and I always pictured IRS to be some white male that's, real authoritative, and these people were being so compassionate with me. And I know they were confused. What we do with this guy that's wanting to give us money? Anyway, they said, one of them said, why don't you give the money back to the organization that's helped you to get this far? So what I did is I bought 11 big books. That was the amount, and was able to give big books to newcomers newer than me. So that was my gift of being able to make that amend. I enjoyed looking at step 10 because it gives me an automatic release. If I can correct something right away when I'm wrong, promptly admit it, it will get the project completed much quicker than having that heavy burden just pull you down, knowing I need to make an amends and I want to do it soon. So if I do it right away, I don't have all that anguish. And the maintenance steps 10, 11, and 12 are so wonderful to keep me going day by day. I continue to want to reflect on that first step because every day I get on my hands, well, not my hands, get on my knees and say, God, please keep me clean and sober today. And He's done that ever since I got sober, and I'm so grateful for that. So thank you for listening to my story. I pray that you have a wonderful day or evening. And now, remember the little girl with the puzzle? Her dad was still reading the newspaper. Of course, it only happened a few moments after the beginning of my story, which, that's been quite lengthy here. Anyway, she said, Daddy, I finished the puzzle, and she showed her daddy the map, and it was a map of the world all put together perfectly. And he was just amazed. He said, you are brilliant. How did you come up with that and so quickly put it together? She turned the picture of the map over, and there was a picture of a man. She said, Daddy, look. When you put the man together, the world automatically falls into place. That's what AA has done for me. When I turned my will and my life over to the care of God and accepted the free gift of sobriety, my world automatically fell into place by putting the man together. If nobody's told you they love you today, I want to tell you that because I do. Even if I don't know you, I know the feelings of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization that can pull us all the way down. And sometimes all we need to hear are 3 little words: I love you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you very much.